He said the earrings were mine. And for a full 5 seconds, I actually considered the possibility. I held them in my hand. Cheap gold clip-ons, barely the size of a dime, the kind you'd find on a clearance rack at a department store that hasn't updated since 2003. And tried to remember if I'd ever, in my 33 years on this planet, worn something that clunky and that not me. I hadn't. And also, I don't wear clip-ons, ever. I have actual piercings. Like a grown woman. Like a person who survived early 2000's mall culture and came out the other side with studs, hoops, and the dignity not to pretend these sad little flea market rhinestones belonged in my jewelry drawer. But he stood there, next to the laundry basket, holding his phone like it was a shield, and had the nerve to say, "Aren't those the ones you wore to that wedding thing last spring?" What wedding thing? What spring? He wasn't even with me at the only wedding I went to last year. It was my cousin's. He had a work install. Which, fine, seemed believable at the time because apparently everything seems believable when you're too tired to zoom in. I stared at the earrings again. They had that glossy, freshly worn look. You know the one, just enough skin oil and perfume residue to say, someone wore these last night and was too busy pretending not to exist today to take them home. And they were in his jacket pocket. Not the glove box, not in the seat crevice, his actual jacket pocket. Like a souvenir. Like a secret. The jacket had been sitting in the backseat of his car for 2 weeks. I found it when I was doing laundry. Because, of course, I was doing laundry. Because laundry is just one of those invisible things wives do between getting ghosted emotionally and buying almond milk that no one else seems to know how to buy. I was pulling clothes out of the backseat, sweatshirts, a beanie, one sock, because it's always just one. And when I shook out the jacket, the earrings hit the floor of the garage with this soft little tink that sounded way too much like truth. So I picked them up. I held them. And I walked back inside like a woman holding a detonator. And I said real calm, "Hey, these fell out of your jacket. Are they yours?" He didn't miss a beat. He didn't even blink. He said, "Oh, those are yours, right?" And here's the part I hate. I nodded. Just slightly. Because something in me, some tired, stretched, self-protective part, wanted to delay the explosion. Even if just for one more hour. One more load of laundry. One more night of pretending. Because I already knew what those earrings meant. I just wasn't ready to admit who they meant. So I said, "Right, from that wedding thing." And he smiled, not a full smile, that half-smirk men get when they think they've dodged something with style. But I wasn't done. Not even close. Because that smile, that fake casual shrug, it sent me straight to Instagram. I opened my phone like a weapon. Scrolled like a woman on a mission. And I don't know what made me do it. I hadn't thought about her in months. But something said, check Mia Harris's story. Not Mia, my friend. Mia, my ex-best friend's little sister. The one who used to trail behind us in high school like a lost puppy with contour. The one who now worked in our garage, helping out with social media, inventory, whatever needs doing. The one who somehow always managed to leave after I came home. I clicked her profile. And there she was. Wearing the earrings. Mirror selfie. Lip gloss, oversized hoodie, hair in a messy bun. The kind of casual hot that makes you want to burn your entire wardrobe. And on her ears. The same damn clip-ons. Caption, felt cute, might delete your marriage later. Okay, no. The real caption was something boring, low light but big vibes, but my brain translated it into betrayal. Because those earrings. They were mine now. Not in a romantic way. In a this will be exhibita kind of way. And my husband. He was already guilty. He just didn't know the trial had started. Before the earrings, I would have told you my marriage was fine. Not great, not poetic, not the kind of thing that made strangers cry during our vows, just fine. We lived in the suburbs, the kind with enough lawn to mow but not enough to enjoy, a beige house, beige dog, beige routines. He worked with his hands, restoring classic cars in a garage he'd slowly converted into his second home. I worked remote in marketing, which meant I spent most of my day unmuting myself and pretending to care about fonts. We shared a Netflix account, a Costco membership, and a dream of maybe having kids when it felt right. But then it didn't feel right, and then we tried anyway, and then... Well, you know what happened. And somehow, ever since that hospital visit, he had become quieter. Not in a grieving way, not in a let's hold hands in silence way. More like absent, like a person physically there, but emotionally folded into some place I couldn't reach, no matter how many times I knocked. He stopped sitting next to me on the couch. He started taking his dinner in the garage. He bought a second fridge for Red Bulls and tools. He stopped calling me babe. Started calling me hey. And somewhere in the midst of all that, Mia started showing up. It was supposed to be temporary. She dropped out of college after a breakup and needed a side hustle. My husband offered her part-time hours helping manage the garage's social media, inventory, and scheduling. Just a couple afternoons a week, he said. She's actually got a decent eye for design. At first, I didn't care. I barely registered it. She was a kid, barely drinking age, always snapping selfies, always tagging us in blurry boomerangs of brake pads. I'd smile when I saw her. Ask her if she wanted iced coffee when I was doing a run. She called me Mrs. P like it was a joke. I let her. I thought I was being kind. I was not being kind. I was being distracted. Because while I was picking up dog food and folding towels and ordering prenatal vitamins we'd never get to use again, she was learning how he liked his eggs, what playlists he listened to, what made him laugh. And he let her. Bit by bit, she stopped leaving when I came home. She lingered. Made jokes that weren't meant for me. One time, I walked in and heard her laugh from the garage like she owned oxygen. Another time, I caught a glimpse of her reflection in the window, her hand brushing against his as he handed her a wrench. I told myself I was being paranoid. Told myself she was young, harmless, immature. Told myself the real problem was my body, my hormones, my anxiety. Because that's what women do, right? We second-guess our instincts until the betrayal smacks us in the face, and even then, we check to make sure we didn't imagine it. I didn't imagine it. The signs were there. Like the way his phone suddenly had a lock screen. He said it was because his employees sometimes picked it up to check the schedule. But I never saw anyone but Mia even near his phone. Or how he'd started showering before coming inside from the garage. And how he never smelled like grease anymore, just like sandalwood and somebody else's shampoo. The intimacy eroded gradually. It wasn't a bomb. It was water on stone. Every day, a little more of him washed away. And every time I asked if something was wrong, he'd give me the same tired answer. You're just going through a lot right now. Translation: your grief is inconvenient to my detachment. So I stopped asking. I folded myself smaller, became quieter, took up less space. Until the day the earrings hit the garage floor like a gunshot. That's when I knew. He hadn't drifted. He departed. And he didn't even bother closing the door behind him. So I started opening other doors. Ones he never thought I'd touch. Like Mia's Instagram. Her TikTok. Her tagged photos. And what I found wasn't shocking. It was confirmation. Videos from the garage I'd never seen. Him laughing in the background. Her lip-syncing to songs with captions like, "Some girls get flowers, I get spark plugs." Comments from him. "Boss in the background. Who taught you to hold a drill like that, lol?" And suddenly, the whole world was in on it. I just hadn't gotten the memo. But now I had the earrings. Now I had proof. Now I had clarity. And I was done playing polite. I didn't explode. I didn't scream. I didn't throw a wine glass at the garage door like some lifetime heroine. No. I scheduled my meltdown like a meeting. Because the one thing you learn when you've been quietly unraveling for months is how to weaponize control. You breathe through the nausea. You fold the towels. You sip your tea. And then you burn everything down on your timeline. He came home late that night, smelled like beer and bar soap and someone else's laugh. I was in the kitchen, reorganizing the spice drawer with the calm precision of a woman who's mentally redesigning her future. He kissed the top of my head like nothing had changed. Like I hadn't already seen Mia's story from earlier that afternoon, her sitting in the front seat of his car, panning to the stereo with his custom playlist on screen, captioned, "The only mechanic I trust to fix me." I turned to face him, held up the earrings in my open palm. Again. His eyes did that thing, flinched, froze, flickered. "Still with the earrings," he said, joking. "I told you they're yours. You said I wore them to a wedding." "Yeah." I smiled, cool, which wedding? He paused. And right there, that pause was all the truth I needed. "There've been a lot." "No, there haven't," I cut him off. "There's been one, and you weren't even there, remember? You were in the garage with her." He opened his mouth, closed it, like a fish caught without water, like a man caught without options. So I leaned in. "You know what's wild?" I said, still calm. "I almost believed you, for a minute, because that's how far I've come from trusting myself. That's how much I've let you shrink my instincts. You had me doubting my own fucking earlobes." He stepped back. "You're spiraling." "And you're lying," I snapped. Silence. Then, okay, so maybe they're hers. Maybe she left them. What's the big deal? I blinked. That was the moment. Not the betrayal, not the gaslighting, that. The moment he turned it into a technicality. "You lied to me," I said, voice shaking now. "You saw me holding them and chose to lie. That's the part you don't get. It's not the earrings. It's that you looked at me, your wife, and thought I was stupid enough to buy it." He exhaled, ran a hand through his hair. "She's just a kid. It didn't mean anything." And there it was. The cliché. It didn't mean anything. They always say that like it's supposed to help. Like being disposable is somehow less painful than being replaced. I laughed. Out loud. "You think that makes it better? That you cheated on me with someone who doesn't even know who she is yet? That while I was in a hospital bed bleeding out the future we planned together, you were out building a backup life with a girl who still uses baby voice on TikTok? Don't bring the miscarriage into this." "Oh, but I will, because that was the night, wasn't it?" His mouth moved, but no sound came. "Yeah," I said. "I figured it out. The night you told me you were going to sleep at the shop because you couldn't breathe and needed space. That was the night you started calling her your oxygen." He looked like he'd been punched. Good. Because I had been. Not physically, not with fists. With neglect, with silence, with every single time I asked for presence and got distance. He sank into a chair. "I didn't mean for it to happen." "Right," I said deadpan, "because she just tripped and fell onto your ego." He rubbed his face like he was the victim here. "I didn't know how to deal with everything. With you, with the grief, I felt useless. So instead of showing up, you showed off." "Nothing. Just stillness." A man-shaped apology that never arrived. I stood there for a second. Breathing, shaking, leveling. Then I walked to the drawer. Pulled out a pen. Wrote on the back of a Trader Joe's receipt. "You can keep the garage. I'm taking the house." I folded it. Placed it next to his untouched dinner. And walked upstairs. Because the earrings. They weren't the beginning. They were just the receipt. The proof. And tomorrow, I was going to do something with them he never expected. I was going to make them famous. The next morning, I woke up with one thought. If he made me the fool in private, I'll make him invisible in public. I didn't want revenge. I wanted resonance. I wanted women, strangers, friends, even the ones who hadn't yet found the earrings, to know that grief doesn't always come with black dresses and casseroles. Sometimes it comes with clip-ons and a crooked smile. So I got dressed. Black jeans, fitted blazer, white tee, no bra. I clipped those damn earrings on. They pinch like hell. Perfect. I called Nicole first. Told her everything, the earrings, the story, the plan. She didn't even let me finish before saying, "You want makeup and lighting, or you want raw and fucking feral?" "Feral," I said. "Be there in 20. By the time she arrived, I'd already staged the porch. The house, the one we'd spent 3 years arguing about countertops and porch lights, had a bright red "for sale" sign in the yard. I'd booked the listing just hours after the confrontation. Cash buyers only, no contingencies. The house was now part of the message. Nicole pulled up, popped her trunk, and revealed a camera, a reflector, a bouquet of dead roses, and a white stool. "You're not just taking a photo," she said. "You're making a fucking cover." We shot for an hour. I sat on the porch rail, arms crossed. I stood barefoot in the gravel driveway with my middle fingers up. I leaned against the "FOR sale" sign, staring down the lens like I was daring someone to ask me what happened. But the final shot, that was the one. Me standing at the threshold of the house, robe slipping off one shoulder, earrings front and center, eyes sharp. Holding a cardboard box filled with his shit, tools, socks, receipts, that god-awful cologne he thought smelled like confidence. Nicole tilted her head. "Name this one." I didn't even hesitate. The earrings were never mine. She posted the shot to her portfolio that night. Hashtagged it still standing. By morning, it had 14,000 shares. By lunchtime, it was a story. Not gossip. Not scandal. A narrative. The photo set caught the attention of a microzine that featured women reclaiming space after emotional trauma. They emailed Nicole, asked if we'd be willing to share more. I said yes before she finished reading the message. That night, I wrote the essay. It poured out of me like it had been fermenting under my skin. I wrote about the miscarriage. I wrote about folding his socks while bleeding. About watching a girl in my garage laugh in his shirts. About how betrayal doesn't always sound like moaning, it sounds like silence. About how he gave her the space I begged him for, and how I gave myself the ending he never had the balls to deliver. The title. She wore my grief like it was hers to keep. The earrings were the metaphor. The proof. The symbol. And when the article dropped, people felt it. The comments were title. "I found a necklace in the dryer once. I believed him. I still regret it. Thank you for not turning this into forgiveness porn." They always say it meant nothing, but we mean everything, and that's why it hurts. I didn't name him. Didn't have to. Everyone knew him. Because we've all met that man. The one who disappears when you bleed, but reappears when you glow. The one who wants the performance of loyalty, not the labor. The one who mistakes proximity for presence, and thinks loving you means never getting caught. That week, an editor from a podcast emailed. They wanted me to read the essay out loud. "Your voice is what makes it hit," she said. "It feels like you're telling it to a friend in the back of an Uber after 3 drinks and too many lies." So I did. One take, no edits. I recorded it from the same room where I used to cry silently into throw pillows while he worked, late. And when it aired, the earrings became a meme. Not in a mockery way. In a movement way. Women started posting photos of their objects. Stray hair ties, unfamiliar perfume bottles, lip glosses, crumpled receipts, and tagging "the earrings were never mine." I wasn't alone. I was amplified. And him. He texted one word. Wow. I didn't respond. Because I don't answer to ghosts. After the post went viral, I couldn't sleep. Not from excitement, not from pride. From noise. Not the digital kind. Not notifications or reposts or heart emojis from strangers. The internal noise. The voice that whispered, "You should have seen it sooner." The one that hissed, "You let her in." The one that sounded suspiciously like my own mother. Maybe if you'd taken better care of him. It's funny how silence can echo louder than screams. Every time I opened my fridge or brushed my teeth or passed the unmade bed, the absence of him screamed you weren't enough. And I hated that. Because the rational part of me knew better. I knew I didn't deserve it. I knew grief isn't an invitation to cheat. I knew a clip-on earring doesn't just fall into a man's coat pocket while he's changing brake fluid. But trauma doesn't listen to reason. It listens to tone. It remembers the way he flinched when I said I'm hurting. It remembers the way he said, "I need space," after I told him I couldn't feel anything below my ribs and I was scared of dying alone in our bathroom. I remember lying in bed after the miscarriage, feeling like a planet that collapsed in on itself, and he didn't hold me. He just got up, said he needed air, went to the garage, came back 3 hours later smelling like someone else's coconut body spray. And when I asked, "Where were you?" he looked me dead in the eye and said, "Now's not the time." That sentence never left me. It tattooed itself on the inside of my skull. Now's not the time. As if there's a good time to ask your husband why he smells like lotion and cowardice. As if your trauma needs to pencil itself into his emotional calendar. And I know, that's the moment I broke. Not from the cheating, not from the earrings, but from the shrinking. From months of being small, quiet, flexible, from swallowing disappointment with a smile, from saying, "It's fine," when I wanted to scream. There were days I'd go hours without speaking because the house was so quiet and I didn't want to be the only sound in it. I stopped singing in the shower. I stopped making double servings. I stopped saying, "I love you" first. And somewhere along the way, I stopped being me. I became his shadow, his wallpaper, his placeholder wife while he curated some new fantasy with a girl who didn't know what kind of man needs space from a grieving woman. The week the article hit 100K reads, I opened my email and found a message from her. From Mia. Subject line, "I didn't know." Body. "I didn't know he was still with you when it started. He told me you were separated, that the miscarriage broke everything and you'd already moved out. I'm sorry you had to find out this way. You didn't deserve that." And for a minute, I felt nothing. Then I felt pity. Not for her. For me. Because even she got a confession. I never did. He never said the words, never owned the affair, never sat me down and said, "I chose someone else." He just let the silence do the dirty work. And I was the one left filling in the blanks. So I wrote back. 2 words. I did. I did deserve better. I did stay. I did bleed alone. I did rebuild. I did survive. And no matter how viral the earrings went, no matter how many women reached out or how many platforms reshared my story, there was still one person I hadn't spoken to. Her. The version of me from 6 months ago, the one on the floor of the bathroom, the one holding a positive pregnancy test with shaking hands and hope in her throat. I hadn't told her yet. That she made it. That she gets out. That she gets free. That one day she clips on those earrings not with shame, but with a smirk. And people applaud. Not because she was betrayed, but because she refused to stay small. Revenge didn't come with yelling. It came with wardrobe. With concept. With camera-ready closure. the online zine that published my story. They circled back. They wanted to do a follow-up piece. A full editorial, photo shoot featured layout in their Resilience After Ruin summer issue. They pitched a studio. I pitched something better. My front yard, I said. The house is already sold. Let's turn it into a backdrop. They loved it. We scheduled the shoot for the Saturday before closing. Symbolic. One last day on property I'd scrubbed toilets in, cooked anniversary meals in, miscarried in, screamed into couch cushions in. The place where everything cracked, but I didn't. And this time, I wasn't standing alone. I invited 5 women I barely knew. Women who had messaged me after the essay, strangers who said, "This happened to me." We met on Zoom, shared stories, compared objects, a twisted bracelet, a shirt that wasn't theirs, a tube of lipstick in the wrong bag. I said, what if we wore all of it? They said yes. So we did. I brought the earrings, of course, the not mine earrings that started it all. One woman brought a ring she found under her car seat. Another brought a flannel her boyfriend swore must be from college. A third wore a necklace she once found tucked under a pillow that wasn't hers. We styled ourselves in power pieces: suit jackets, boots, ripped jeans, lipstick like armor. We stood on the lawn of my soon-to-be former house and let the photographer direct us like warriors returned from battle. The last shot was just me, in front of the FOR sale sign, wearing a satin robe, the earrings, and nothing else but heels and a smirk. Title of the series: Women Who Survived Objects. I didn't need to say his name. The story lived in the details. The light glinting off cheap gold. The white paint chipping from the porch he never fixed. The tension in my shoulders that said, I know exactly what I lost and what I walked away from. The shoot made it into the issue. Front page. Thousands of shares, feminist blogs, Instagram reels with piano versions of Billie Eilish, TikToks dissecting every frame. It became a moment. And like clockwork, he called. Blocked number, straight to voicemail. His message: Is this about me? I laughed for 2 straight minutes. I didn't reply. Because the kind of man who plays the victim in your self-portrait of recovery doesn't deserve a final brushstroke. But then something unexpected happened. A woman from a national press syndicate reached out. She'd seen the spread, wanted to interview me for a piece on women reclaiming their endings. She asked if I'd be open to telling more. I said yes. Not to get famous. Not to hurt him. But because the story wasn't just mine anymore. It belonged to every woman who had ever looked at a pair of earrings and thought, these are not mine, but this pain is. It belonged to the girl I used to be, the one who'd folded his laundry, swept his garage, memorized his schedule like a second job, and still got left behind. The interview dropped 2 weeks after I moved into my new place, a loft with terrible parking and incredible light. My furniture was all secondhand, and the walls still echoed, but I felt safe. Like myself. No ghosts, no gasoline-slick silence, no lies so thin they cracked in your hands. And at the end of the article, they ran a quote of mine. He told me the earrings were mine. Now they are, but not because he gave them to me. Because I took them back, along with every piece of myself he thought he could dim. I printed that page. Framed it. Hung it in my hallway next to the mirror. And underneath it, the earrings. Mounted like art. Because maybe they were never meant to be worn. Maybe they were meant to be witnessed. Sometimes I still see them. Not the earrings. Them. Her specifically. Mia. Once at the grocery store, in line for self-checkout. She had her hair in a ponytail and a bruised energy that looked too familiar. She didn't see me. Or maybe she did and decided not to. She was wearing a hoodie that looked like one of his. I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel triumph. I just felt done. Like a door had closed so completely, even the echo had moved out. It's wild, isn't it? How something so small, two tiny bits of metal and plastic, can change the trajectory of your entire life. People still ask me if I ever heard from him again. The answer is yes. 3 more emails. 1 DM under a burner account I blocked instantly. And a letter, handwritten, delivered to my old address and forwarded to the new one. I didn't read it. I burned it. Not in some symbolic witchy ritual, just in the kitchen sink, with a lighter because I could. Because now I choose what enters my house. And that includes regret. That includes nostalgia. That includes versions of him trying to crawl their way back through the cracks he left behind. I don't need closure. I gave that to myself. People also ask if I'm dating again. I am. But slowly. No timelines, no expectations, no fantasy of being someone else's everything. Because the first thing I did after leaving was become my own. I went to therapy. Real therapy. Not the kind where you sit there wondering if you're making your partner uncomfortable by unpacking your pain too loudly. I joined a community writing group. Started taking photos again. I stopped sleeping with the TV on, not because I'm no longer scared, but because now I listen to myself. And she's a better narrator than anything on Netflix. She says things like, "You were never hard to love, he was just unequipped. Grief doesn't make you undesirable, it makes you honest. Anyone who needs you to be smaller is not your person." There's one more photo I never posted from the shoot. It was just me. Back turned. The earrings held in my palm, hand stretched behind me like I was letting them fall into the past. It's blurry, soft, not as punchy as the others. But it's my favorite. Because it's quiet. Because it's mine. Because it doesn't ask to be understood, it just exists. Like me. I used to think survival looked like a clean slate. But it doesn't. It looks like a scar you're not ashamed to show. It looks like wearing the earrings that were never yours, because now they are. It looks like walking past women in the grocery store and knowing their secrets before they speak them. It looks like telling a story before it tells you. And it looks like this. Me. On my own porch. With no ring. No husband. No apology. Just peace. And the sound of my own voice, finally louder than the silence he left behind. Subscribe to my Mia's Stories YouTube channel for raw, emotional stories and authentic insights that encourage healing, growth, and understanding. Don't forget to be part of a supportive space where stories inspire and lessons resonate. What do you think about this story? Let us know in the comments. Your opinion truly matters to us, and we're here for you.